You don't know what you don't know, but there's always people around you can ask. If you can't help, you should help. If you know you want to go get that, and you know that there's nothing you can lose by doing it, why wouldn't you make a plan for that?
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they're taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, what's up? You found ready for Pushback. You found ready for Pushback. And here we are. I'm Nick Fialka, and I am with you with my buddy Travis for another interview episode. And we are talking about something that is vitally, vitally important. If you are trying to find a way to separate yourself on your resume, you need to think about volunteering. And Travis has the heart of a servant. He has the heart of a person who gives way more than he takes. Way more than he takes. He works for a major airline. He goes to the conventions. He volunteers like crazy. He makes sure things are taken care of. He's kind of a boss and a guy that just loves being a volunteer. And he loves all sorts of other cool stuff like guns and ammo and drinking whiskey and smoking cigars and hanging out and motorcycles and all the things I love, right? So Travis is one of my favorite people. Listen, this guy, this is who you want to be when you grow up. That's what Travis is. I'm just telling you. And I want to get to it, so let's go. Let's sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere? Or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, tridenthomeloans.com, and check them out.
Hey pilot, it's Nick. I want to tell you about a great friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope. He's a financial planner and he's completely focused on the professional pilot. He's the kind of guy you want to go to for real talk to help you figure out your financial future. With so many upgrades and so many transitions and so many things going on, you owe it to yourself to give him a call. He'll help you design and execute really smart financial planning strategies, whether it's retirement planning, investment management, military transition, tax planning. He's a great financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, CFP, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Give him a shout. All the information's in the show notes. You should definitely tell him I told you to call.
Hey, pilot, does your pilot uniform make a short flight feel like a transcon slog? Flight uniforms have reinvented aviation shirts with 3D stretch, stain repellents, and no wrinkles. These shirts are just plain comfortable and ready for takeoff right out of your rollerboard. Flight Uniform is trusted by more than 25,000 pilots, and their flagship flight shirt has over 1,500 five-star reviews. I've worn every pilot shirt out there, and if you know me, you know I only wear flight uniforms. Be the envy of every cockpit at flightuniform.com and get a special podcast exclusive discount with the code SpitfirePod20 to take 20% off your first order. That's SpitfirePod20, all one word, for 20% off your first order at flightuniform.com. Hey, pilot, don't forget, on March 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be doing a live webinar with the Director of Hiring at United Airlines.
You know him, Justin Ritter. We will be answering all of your questions live. So don't forget to sign up. All of the details are in the show notes and the hyperlink is there. Sign up, log in, and ask your question to Justin Ritter. I'll see you March 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, here we are. Welcome to the podcast, Travis Koch. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. It's good to be here. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I am so glad you're here. We are going to have a great episode today. I'm really glad you reached out because you are, first off, one of my favorite people. And
Oh, nut.
And I have, over the past year or so, we've gotten to know one another really well. And I love your style. And so will you do me a favor and tell the kids at home, the pilot that's listening, just a short little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So grew up in the Pacific Northwest, Washington native by trade. Lots of outdoor stuff, opportunities. I was ski instructing and jumping out of planes and scuba diving and fishing and everything. And just kind of a sticks kid that grew up around horsepower and jet fuel. My dad was a boat builder. He built the race boats that run down at Seafair, and that's where like the Blue Angels go and everything. And so I grew up around that and didn't really care much for the boats, loved the planes. Ended up going to Gonzaga University, did not go to any academy school or anything, figured my military dream had sailed and was in a rock climbing class of all things, just with somebody who knew a family friend that flew for Southwest and used to fly for the Air Force, and just reached out the same way you do with kind of the volunteering piece. Just reach out to somebody and say, hey, what can you tell me? Lack of information, lack of ambition. Those are only things you can control. Everything else is kind of timing, the world, whatever. But if you're never going to ask the question, you never got anywhere. So I gave a guy a call, and the rest is kind of history. Went off, dropped the Navy application, went off to fly T6s, one of the pictures there, C-12s, and then went to go fly P-3s in the fleet, did 3 deployments on that all over the world, and then went to go be a flight instructor back on the T-6 and the cradle of naval aviation, Pensacola, Florida. Now on the John C. Stennis as a shooter, except the boat is not floating. There's no planes flying off the deck, so I wear a hard hat and just run around on a flight deck trying to get the ship kind of back in the fight, as it were, as it goes through the overhaul period. And so, quick synopsis, that's me. That's the story. Just a regular kid who tried to go do, I guess, excellent things. We'll see.
That's right. And for the pilot that's listening that is not in the military, I'll tell you that once an aircraft carrier goes on a deployment, sometimes 2 or 3 or whatever, there's a schedule that they keep it on where they bring it back to a shipyard and they do a complete overhaul of that whole thing. They pull it out of the water. I mean, it's massive. It's a huge undertaking. It takes years, right? How long are you guys in the shipyards?
Without violating any kind of OPSEC, I guess, it's going to be a hot minute. It's going to be, let's see, it got in.
More than a year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
More like 5 years.
Long time.
It's, they got to drill or cut out massive holes, like 100-foot wide holes, just to haul out rods and bring them back in. And yeah, it's crazy. So
yeah, it's an amazing effort. And so So you're spending your time not floating on that ship, but also just kind of working in that shipyard as they're doing massive work.
Yeah, working in the shipyard. I'm the boss's supply and logistics pit bull. And also all these sailors that are still on the ship as well. 2,500, 3,000 people that are still there. They still got to get quals and maintain training so that when it is time to go out the door, it's not like we just took 5 years off hanging out and now nobody's ready to go employ it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's important for sure.
So
last year in 2022 is when your journey to the airlines started going on. So talk me through what it was like leaving the military and trying to figure out how to get a job.
Yeah, man, it's been a whirlwind of a year. I'm still in, obviously, but we're on the way out here in a couple months. But yeah, like I said, the best key to managing stress is time management, in my opinion. And I didn't want to be backed against the wall with any kind of, you never want to have people waiting on you. You know what I mean? And so I was at about 15 months out from availability date, which would be terminal leave for us Navy types or military types. And just said, okay, it's time to get this ball rolling in terms of applications. But it was 2021 when I did my ATP CTP. And so it's kind of hard. You don't know what you don't know, but there's always people around you can ask. You know what I mean? And that's one of the huge importances of networking off the bat is it's kind of like when you're studying for something, it's better to study in groups because even if you thought maybe you didn't have that answer, somebody else will bring something up. You'd be like, oh, wait, I need to go get smart on that. And so it was kind of the same thing here. I was like, all right, what am I going to need? I'm going to need an ATP, CTP. I already have commercial. I'm going to need to go do these classes. We're going to need a practical and need a resume, and I need applications, and I need to have all this reviewed, and that all takes time. And so I went to TPN.
What is TPN?
The Pilot Network Conference. Yep, this time last year with nothing. Didn't know anybody. I just barely had apps in the system, right? I was like, I'm outside of anybody's availability window that I'd heard of at the time. And let's just go start networking. Let's go figure out what else we don't know, right? Just take that time and go learn. And I met with the Spitfire folks, right? And so in terms of the actual process of getting out of the Navy, it's kind of a time game. You can't put in for resignation until you're within a year, but you know it's coming. So why not do something about it now? I met Bill and Tron and kind of the whole Spitfire team. I like this. This is something with purpose that is practical, and it never works itself out of a job, if you know what I mean, right? And it's not just airline specific. And so I just started hanging out with these people, and I was like, this is a blast. Good folks doing good things. All people that are right where I am, right? In terms of a lot, well, not all, but 80% of these people are military, getting ready to get out and figuring out where people's successes and the shortfalls are. And so I just started learning. I started talking, and then I started volunteering. And that's kind of where the rest became history. And we can talk about that whenever you're ready, if that answers your question in terms of the timeline process.
Absolutely. I want to dive down on a couple of things here. The first thing you mentioned is that it was 15 months ahead of time where you started going. And I will tell anybody that's listening that happens to be in the military, or somebody that is not in the military and heading the direction of the airlines, 15 months is not enough time right now. And
no,
24 months, you can get hired by some companies. And I would say, I tell my people 36 months, give yourself a nice cushion. So seriously, 3 straight years before you get out of the military. Or for a person that is a civilian and building their hours and things like that, as you are approaching that magic 1,500 hour number, you're probably at 1,000 hours or something. That's really when you want to start your focus on getting your next job. Because if you're waiting until you hit 1,500 hours, or if you are waiting until 6 months before you get out of the military, you have wasted a ton of time. And so,
agreed.
Yeah, you would agree with that?
I would, but it also depends on where you're at and what you're doing. So for me, it was easy to do that as a T6 pilot down in Whiting because they're very flexible to your schedule as well. If you're a deployed unit, you know you're going to have that time away. I'd say, 3 years is probably a good spot, at least to start, but not worth freaking out if you haven't quite hit that mark. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's kind of going to be situational. But the safe buffer, yeah, because at the time, 2 years out was unheard of. I think United was the first person to even announce that. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been setting the stage for about 9 minutes, but really we are going to dive into right now is that volunteer aspect. How did you decide that you needed to do that? What was the catalyst? And then how did you start moving forward with that?
Yeah. So how did I decide it? It just seemed like a good thing to do. It's kind of like you never want to have people waiting on you. You can control your own amount of ambition, right? And information gathering stage. That's all 100% on you, right? Nobody's going to do it for you. For me, my personality, like I like dealing with people. I love meeting people. I make friends easy, right? But if I'm going to go and work or pay this much to go to a conference, I was like, how can we get more out of it outside of just mingling, meeting maybe some people and then going home when the conference is done? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you get the most out of a journey that's only 3 days long? That might be the most important conference you ever go to, right? So I would say there was both personal and professional aspects of going down that road. And so I called up to Rhett Williams of all people. OVAP was my first big volunteer conference, like in August of last year. I think it was August. And they said, hey, this is a volunteer coordinator. I got the number through a Spitfire thread and said, hey, I would love to help out. I'm kind of late to the party. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but I really just want to help out and do something and occupy this time a little better other than just waiting on some meet and greets and calling it a day. And it was to Rhett Williams. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm sure we can find you a spot. Just show up. And so I showed up and said, hey, do you have any more rooms? She said, we're pretty booked and everything. I said, anything you need at all. I'll help with anything. I'll move tables. I'll do anything. I want to dive into this. I want to meet people. I want to figure out how this stuff works because I've never been to a conference before. Well, I had. It was TPM, but that was small venue. I was strictly learning that particular go around. And so I just dove right in and said, what do you need? Anything you need? And I just check in with her regularly. And pretty soon she had me busy all day, every day of the conference. And it was a blast. I was meeting everybody. It was fun. You felt useful. And that's like the personal aspect of it is, if you can help, you should help, right? These conferences don't happen without volunteers. They just don't. The professional aspect of that was, if you want to meet the people that might have an influence on your future career, volunteering is a great way to do it because you're going to get more face time, right? It's like throwing 1 dart at a board versus 10 darts at a board. You're going to end up hitting the right person eventually. Just keep grinding, go out of your way, give some of your time because it's free. You're already there. So what difference does it make if you're going out the door at 3:00 or if you're going to stay and help set up the next room? You know what I mean? And it's not hard and you make a lot of friends. And then as it turns out, as you leave there, people are like, hey, who was that? They helped out quite a bit, and then networking's everything, man. It hasn't changed since I got my first job when I was in high school or college. It's just somebody's got to know somebody and you have to be worth their time to say, hey, I recommend this person. And so how do you do that?
What was it like moving tables in a suit?
Less than fun, but totally worth it if you're sitting on a couple CJOs down the road, you know what I mean? And really, you got to look at what these conferences are doing too, is they're opening the doors in ways that have never been open for almost every demographic of person these days, right? There's a conference for everybody and everything. And if they're not having people to even help move tables, doesn't matter what you're wearing, you kind of get over it. You're having fun. And really you can take off your suit jacket and now you're just business cash pretty much, but I think the amount of fun you actually end up having while you're volunteering for these things outweighs the fact that you're moving a table in a suit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so did you walk out of OBAP with any job offers?
Not directly, because I was right about 12 months out at OBAP. In fact, I had talked to UPS because I hit my 12-month out mark 4 days prior. And so a couple apps became much more applicable. But I think that was still just a little bit far for some companies because we hadn't quite yet gone into the crazy, hey, now we're only asking for 1,000. Now we're going 2 years out. But I had several meet and greets that were not scheduled meet and greets, just with the amount of running around and volunteering you were doing. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. But shortly after that, I went to no job offers, but less than a month later, I was on a Zoom interview with Southwest doing my HR Zoom. And 3 short months after that, I was in Atlanta doing my Delta interview. So the job offers came quick. We didn't leave OBAP with any in the pocket.
Do you feel like that volunteering had an effect on your invitation to do these interviews?
I think so. In fact, I don't want to say I know so, but if the volunteering itself didn't have an effect, the relationships you made while volunteering probably had more of an effect. You know what I mean? Because you see the recruiting teams are more or less the same people and you see them again and again. And pretty soon they become friends, better friends than they would if you were just going to each one of these conferences as an attendee and only as an attendee, getting your 10, 15 minute meet and greet per conference. In this case, it's like, hey, people are going on coffee runs and they're helping out too with setup and you can swing by anytime you want. Say, do you need anything? Can I help you with anything? And those relationships, I think, what makes your name memorable and your face memorable. It's not just the fact that I was on a volunteer list. You know what I mean? Like the act itself was different than the effect of the act, if that makes sense.
Were you carrying a stack of resumes in your back pocket while you were volunteering?
No, that's a thing people worry about. And I'm glad you brought that up because people think, oh, if I volunteer, that's going to interfere with my meet and greets. It's not. You work your schedule entirely around that. They're so happy you're just helping that, hey, I got to step away for 15 minutes. Be like, oh, okay, great. Good luck. Like you're still at an airline conference. You know what I mean? So I had my resumes for my meet and greets in a folder that I just would swing over, grab that folder, go to my meet and greet and come back and keep going. There is zero interference with you going to talk to the people you want to talk to. In fact, I would say volunteering gives you much more time to go do that. Because you can go anytime you want. You can swing by and say, hey, I'm working this booth. Would you mind if we moved it? And any of these recruiting teams have been more than helpful. Said, yeah, absolutely. Just swing by it like this time and we'll get you in.
Right.
People are people.
And so you're targeting a major airline, but were you also helping with booths that had nothing to do with your targets?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm big on quotes. And so it's like, you can learn a lot about somebody, believe it or not. Like you can learn a lot about somebody by how they treat people that have nothing to offer them. And so I was there to help out. Like it was, like I said, there's personal and professional aspects, but for your essay, like I'm going back to OBAP in August and I've already agreed to start a job with an airline. I'm not going back looking for jobs. I'm going back because I had fun and I made friends. And Tourette was like, I want you to lead the volunteers and you don't say no to Tourette Williams. So that's another life constant. And that's what this becomes. It's like, now I'm going back just to keep doing what I was doing and to help people that I'm not asking for anything from, just because it's like Spitfire. It's kind of like, I believe in what you're actually doing here. That's not work. That's just a good time. So I hope that answers it. Does that answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the beauty of what we do is that the good time equals the work. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it is absolutely a win-win.
Yeah, I agree. And have you made any friends that are people that work booths and are recruiters or people selling things or anything like that?
Yeah, actually. And again, a lot of the same people go to these conferences. And so it's like seeing old friends. The more and more you go back, the more and more old friends you have to see. I mean, even like I never had an application with Allegiant and their whole staff became good friends. And then after TPN, it's like the Avelo people are friends. And even some of like the non-flying types, like the aviation retirement strategies folks, like you just start branching out and meeting people. And you find out too, it's like, oh, hey, I'm in Norfolk. You're just down the street from me. Like, hey, let's meet up for a beer. And so that's like the networking piece, right? It's just have friends in a lot of places. But really it's just go be social, go have fun. And even if you're an introvert, it's not like you can saddle up for 3 days and go make some friends. Like it's not, if you look at the backside of what that could look like, where the next time you need a question answered or some help with something, and there's people that are just ready to help because you helped. Right. And that's life. That's the beauty of it.
Saddle up. I love that. And I have 2 points I want to drive home that I want to pick out for the person listening. The first part about the stack of resumes and stuff like that. When people are part of our community, even if they're not, whatever they need, we often at our booths at Spitfire, we usually go in, we've got a booth, and we also usually get a separate room which we put in snacks and drinks, but mostly it's an area away from the recruiters where you can go and chill out and just relax and meet other pilots that are great, but also it's a place to put your stuff.
Yeah. And hang up a suit in case, you're doing the whole thing that American likes to do where it's like, hey, it's casual conference, but don't come in here without a suit. So you're like, oh, well, where do I stash a suit so it's not going to get wrinkled and crumpled to all hell. So yeah, that's the Spitfire way. And also there's a lot of behind the scenes resume prep and app review. And that continuity of experience. If you're like, hey, I just got done with mine. Like, let me check your resume, make sure you're good. And that's how Spitfire does things. I mean, shoot, when I first signed on, I ended up calling Bill and say, I think I owe you money, dude. Like, I feel guilty because you were just helping me and I wasn't even a client yet. Right. So that's just how we do it, man. And it's like, and I think that every conference knows that now, and more and more of them want to be like, hey, what space do you want? Where can we set you all up at where it'll be effective? Because they know that works to have your own space to do things and to prep and then go out and get it.
Absolutely. The second thing I want to mention of something you just said was that you have these connections. It's not just a business network connection. It's a friendship, right? And you're creating these new friendships. People, when they come to me and they want to know X, Y, or Z. The other day I had a person reach out on LinkedIn that had just barely 1,500 hours and they wanted to go to a certain airline and they were asking for tips. What do I do? How do I do this? How would I ever break through? I don't know anybody, but I know that person. I know who can make that happen. And so what I do, I asked him, hey, send me a text. Let me introduce you. I sent my friend a text who was the director of HR. And I said, hey, would you be interested in talking to this person? They just have questions. And now that person has a job offer. And it's not because I wasn't trying to leverage anything. I was trying to find, hey, there's one good person here. There's another good person here. Let's bring them together and see where it goes. And that is so important. When I go to these conferences, I meet everybody. I still have more people to meet. There's hundreds and hundreds of people.
Oh, yeah.
But I love that. Being able to be that person that can help affect that change comes from my giving spirit. And I see the exact same thing for you, which is because you didn't just stop at OBAP, right? Did you do any?
Oh, no. Yeah, we went to RTAG, WIA, and I went back to TPN this last round. And I didn't volunteer at that one. I was solely working for Spitfire. Yeah. And I'm not stopping there even long after I've been hired, because why would you? You know what I mean? Like my old air boss, he'd be like, yeah, nobody goes through life unscathed, so you need to have people. You need to have people that are not even just in your circle, but in every circle you can possibly get. So jump in and volunteer. If you look up any one of these conferences online, there's a number or an email address of somebody to call and say, hey, I would love to volunteer. And they are so happy to get back to you super fast and say, hey, we'd love to have you. You know, where do you want to work? What do you want to, anything specific you want to do? Here's a schedule. You can fill that out if you want. And it's that easy, and just start there. And then, yeah, you become a victim of your own success after a while because you helped 10 people that told 10 other people. It's like, hey, I was right where this guy was, right? Nothing, didn't know anything, didn't know anybody. And then you get 10 more, and then the 10 become 20, 20 become 40. And so you're never going to run out of people to meet. And I think that's a good spot to be, man. It really is.
I think that 6 months from now, I'm probably going to start getting calls from the presidents of these organizations telling me that they have too many volunteers.
Probably. Good. What a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
It's way better than the alternative. So the more free help you have, if you will, it's like, think of how much bigger and better these conferences could get. Now, some of them are already really big, right? I mean, remember at RTAG, there was a line a mile long just waiting to talk to folks. But what if you had volunteers that could go split that up a little bit? Or if the volunteers were vetted enough because you had your pick of the litter to be like, hey, we're going to give you a little bit more high profile responsibilities this go around. And they're really, the options are endless. It's just how the coordinators want to run it. But if you don't have the help, you don't have the option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
tell me what the experience was like volunteering at the RTAG convention in Fort Worth.
At RTAG, pretty solid. It was, I think, PJ was my go-to volunteer person. And what I like about this, now that's a military conference, more or less, right?
So you fit in, bad haircuts, all.
But yeah, what do you mean? I got no hair to cut. Look at this, man. But it was pretty squared away in terms of, hey, we need you here doing this at this time, whatever. And then that quickly dissolved into just, hey, I need somebody to do this. Be like, I got some extras over here. Everybody is working towards the same goal. It's like, this is what we need done. Here's your goalposts. Please don't leave your post unless you have a relief. But outside of that, run around and find what needs to get done and do it. And I like that. For me, that's that freedom to operate that a lot of times you don't get in the military. And so it was kind of this familiar, but also a welcome change. Very different experience. Well, not very, but OBAP versus WIA versus TP or versus RTAG. They're all run by different people. They all have their kind of different preferences and different targets, if you will. But at the end of the day, if you're a body that says, what do you need? How can I help you? You'll find something to do. And RTAG was a lot of fun just because there's a lot of like-minded folks in the room. But in terms of from a volunteer perspective, you throw that hat on and you're like, all right, I am here for everybody else but me. And that's going to work out just fine. Give 100%, helping somebody else. The score takes care of itself for you at the end of the day. That hasn't changed since high school football, man. So
yeah. And PJ's awesome. He used to be a police officer. And so
yeah, he
comes to the floor with a war plan and he's ready to invade the conference.
Sure does.
But you didn't wear a suit at RTAG.
No, that was...
The people that were attending wore suits, but the volunteers did not.
Correct. And that was a little bit different than OBAP, because in OBAP, I was in a suit. Now, you could probably get away with not doing it if you're solely a volunteer. But if you're a volunteer who's also looking at a job offer, hey, dress for the job you want, maybe not the one you have right now. So, but RTAG, they wanted you in a bright red polo, so everybody in there knew that you were giving your time for them. And I think that was kind of a statement. And that's kind of the way TPN is too. But that's more of a casual. But RTAG was different because it's a suit and tie event, but you were in just a polo and a set of khakis, brown belt, brown shoes, per PJ's recommendation, and wear your polo.
Yeah, it's definitely a uniform idea. But here's what I like about the RTAG aspect of it. And I saw it happen dozens and dozens of times, is that the person would be in their red polo. It had a little RTAG logo on it, said volunteer on the sleeve. And they were doing meet and greets in their polo.
Yep.
They were not, and they were interviewing in their polo.
Yes.
Because they were busy. But the companies, they ate it up.
Mm-hmm.
They know that you're giving more than yourself.
They did. Yep. And I think there's certain other pieces of swag and a flair, if you will, that you'll get as a volunteer at some of these other conferences, whether it's a button or a pin or whatever that you clip on your lanyard, that just your ticket to get into the conference. But RTAG was, that was the first one where it was in your face. I'm a volunteer. And kind of going back to that personal and professional goals thing, it's like, well, that was one spot where they kind of merged. And by design, which is where, hey, I'm still here for a job, but I'm still giving my time. Yes, I'm busy, but it was a statement to the airline that said, like, the volunteers get taken care of at these events. And that's this professional side of the house, is if you're worried about not getting your time with the airline, I will be the first one to tell you that is not a concern.
Yes.
You get taken care of.
And the people that push harder and give bigger, they are usually the ones that become the concierge for a booth. If you're fortunate enough, if you're targeting FedEx or you're targeting whoever, they usually have one go-to volunteer at every booth and to just take care of whatever needs to happen. And that person, guarantee you they're going to be in that uniform in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and I saw that at WIA. I think it was WIA. It was either no, it might have been RTAG.
It was not. It was WAI.
No, or WAI, sorry. Which is weird. It's like Women in Aviation International versus like Women in Aviation. Yeah, anyway.
It's a tricky one. It always gets me.
Acronym's nut. WAI. Yeah, my mistake. Worst volunteer ever.
I'm lucky I've got a little girl that's involved with WAI, so I can remember it. She always talks about it.
Yeah. But no, that was... Can I
talk about that experience?
I will.
Oh, yeah. Go.
I want to add one thing to that. So to what I was talking about earlier, even if you don't have this, like, or if you signed up late or if last minute you finally got the leave or whatever and were able to go to the conference, if you go in there with the proverbial crowbar of a positive attitude and say, how can I help you? I insist on helping you. You have that free reign to go hang out at whatever booth you want also, provided you do your job. You got your job done. Nobody's waiting on you. But once you're kind of in between, go make friends, go. Just because somebody's assigned that booth, that's okay. You can go make friends too, right? Be an effective floater, if you will.
I love that.
Yeah, I know, right? So Women in Aviation, that was a little bit less organized than RTAG. And I don't say that as a stab. I mean, from a volunteering perspective, it was much more, hey, here's the goalposts. If you see something that needs to get done, do it. And that was awesome because you can always find something. And my experience is where I need to get a vacuum cleaner from somebody. And the conventions usually hire their own staff, right? So you're thinking, hey, go get a vacuum cleaner. How hard could it be? And they're like, yeah, we actually are not allowed to loan it out to you. So now I'm making friends with this booth over here because they have coffee. So I can bring the vacuum cleaner people over to this booth, say, hey, have some coffee. And I take the vacuum and I go use it and bring it back before anybody notices. You're like a spy of sorts. But every conference is just very different. And it kind of depends on who's your lead coordinator and really the schedule of events and what's going to need to get done. But at the end of the day, go in there with the attitude that says, I'm going to help and I'm going to do something. And somebody will find a spot for you. It's really not that hard. Even if you didn't even sign up, you say, hey, I got for 10 free minutes. What can I do to help? I'm not a volunteer, but I can be. Right. So, but that's my personality.
Absolutely. Finding that place.
Yeah,
it is. It definitely is. And that's why we are so excited to just dive here because these conferences, there are either hundreds of attendees or thousands of attendees.
Yep.
And either way, the part where you give helps you stand out more. And also at the end of the day, you are going to be, even if you don't meet your target, it becomes a flow where this person knows this person knows this person knows that person. And then all of a sudden you're lined up. And I think that you can't go wrong when you're volunteering, as long as you are doing it, not trying to do it for yourself.
Exactly.
You can see right through it. And it's really obnoxious when I see it.
It's like a scripted tell me about a time answer. You know what I mean? People can tell when you're not being authentic. People can tell when you're not being genuine. I don't think that's very hard. Yeah, I can read people fairly well, but it's pretty easy to tell when somebody shows up and you're like, I don't believe anything you're telling me. And so, yeah, that's the personal versus professional. Like, you will be taken care of. Yes, that's not the reason you should be doing it. But the reason you should be doing it is because, yeah, you meet a lot of friends, you get a lot of opportunities, you get smart on issues maybe you weren't smart on before. The byproduct of that is usually, yeah, you're going to get some face time with the people you want to be at, right? But even if it doesn't happen at that conference, it's like, well, go to another one and another one. Like, what do you have to lose? What do you lose? What are you out? Time? Okay. Right. And so I get it. Not everybody has the time and the conferences aren't particularly cheap. You know what I mean? But you can plan for that. I like to think so. But again, I don't get into people's financials. If you know you want to go get that and you know that there's nothing you can lose by doing it, why wouldn't you make a plan for that? You know what I mean? And maybe that's insensitive, but
yeah. Well, no, when I was going through this, I have a big family and I was at a regional before regionals were paying Big Daddy money. And so making $30,000 a year was really tricky, but we set up a family budget and we knew it was going to cost about $1,000 for me to go to a convention. And so as we had that budget in mind from the beginning of the year. We would make sure we put that money aside so that we could do it intentionally. But when I was there, I tried to make the most out of it. And I think that is because I didn't have any money left to go to another one.
Yeah. So, hey, and if that's the spot, it's kind of like I said before, is to go occupy that time. You should not have any downtime until like the convention's closed and they're not letting people in anymore. But yeah, you hit it on the head. It's like, go make the most of those 2 to 3 days. Because some of it, and they're like some like Thursday, Friday, like that's an interesting conference schedule, but okay, Friday, Saturday. So yeah, this is probably the best way to make the most of that time. And you lose nothing. You lose absolutely nothing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Travis, I really appreciate that you give as much as you do. And I really appreciate you, even the transition of that. I see your heart when you work with our clients, when you work with the people in our group chats and our communities. Even though you've crossed your finish line, you are always there helping and reaching out. And it is part of your spirit and who you are. So I see that. We all see that. And we really appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time here. We've even had to reschedule a couple times. It's important. And so your spirit, I hope, will have an effect on this next generation that comes behind you. The seniority numbers that are going to be higher than yours or lower than yours, however you say it. But that's awesome, man. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for spending time. And thank you for the value that you've given to the pilot that's trying to get their job.
Yeah. All good. It is. Yeah. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I know that sounds like super cheese. That's what everybody says. But really, it's like, if you're not going to reach back and pull the next ones through, did you even deserve to make it? You know what I mean? And so that's standard. You have to. And so, yeah, I'm always free for questions. Somebody's got my numbers. It's posted in a lot of places. So reach out anytime. That's honestly, I love this. It doesn't feel like work doing it this way. And going to the shipyard, it feels like work. Doing this kind of stuff, no. I get paid to go to the shipyard. You don't get paid to go to a conference, right? So there's your difference right there. If that tells you, hey, what do I really think is worth my time? This kind of stuff is absolutely, is no question. So I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring. And you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, spitfireelite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.